Student, this is chapter number 8, Cell, the Unit of Life, and this is video number 2. In previous video, I have explained you about the prokaryotic cell, and in this video, I'll be explaining you about the eukaryotic cell. And we all know that eukaryotic cell, they have membrane-bound organelles, and the eukaryotes, they include all protists, plants, animals, and fungi. The eukaryotic cells have large compartments of cytoplasm through the presence of membrane-bound organelles. They have a nucleus. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear envelope. In addition to that, there is a variety of complex locomotory and cytoskeletal structures. The genetic material is organized into chromosomes. All eukaryotic cells are not identical. Plant and animal cells are different. And we all know that in a plant cell, there is cell wall and there are plastids. Vacuoles is large, and the large vacuole pushes the nucleus to one carbon. And an animal cell, there is no cell wall. Outside the nucleus, there is a centrosome, which is absent in plant cells. So let us directly come up to the different organelles in the eukaryotic cells. The very first organelle that I'm going to discuss is the cell membrane, the structure of cell membrane. Children, the cell membrane structure is similar for the prokaryotes and eukaryotes. And we all know that every living cell is covered with a thin, elastic, transparent, semi-permeable, and regenerative membrane called the cell membrane. In 1950s, with the advancement of the electron microscope, the detailed structure of the membrane was studied. The cell membrane is composed of a lipid which forms a bilayer, that is 2 layers of lipid, with protein molecules embedded in it at places. Later, it was revealed that the cell membrane also possesses carbohydrates also at some places. In human being, the membrane of the eukaryotes has approximately 52% of protein and 40% of protein. Depending upon the ease of extraction, the membrane protein can be classified as integral or peripheral protein. Peripheral protein lies on the surface of the membrane, while integral protein are the partially embedded or totally embedded protein in the membrane. The protein is totally embedded or partially embedded. You can see the structure of membrane, cell membrane over here. It's a bilipid membrane. The lipid layer has 2 parts. The rounded part which you can see over here, that is the hydrophilic part, and the tail which you can see, that is the hydrophobic part. And over here you can see the carbohydrate and the proteins also embedded either partially or complete. So this forms a structure of the membrane, and there are some cholesterol molecules here and there. This improved model of the structure of cell membrane was proposed by Singer and Nicholson in 1972. And it was widely accepted as a fluid mosaic membrane. Now, why was it known as a fluid mosaic membrane? Because there is these protein molecules which are present between the lipid layers, bilayers, they can move, and thus it gives a fluidity to the membrane. And that's why, because these protein molecules, they can move within the membrane, that's why it gives a fluidity, as I told you, and so it is a glossy fluid in nature, and that's why you call it as a fluid mosaic membrane. Now, what is the importance of this fluid nature? The fluid nature of the membrane is very important from the point of view that, from the point of view of cell growth, cell membrane can extend itself, formation of intracellular junctions, secretion, endocytosis, and cell division. And one of the most important function of the cell membrane is transport of molecule across it. Children, we have just now, in the previous slide, I told you that cell membranes are selectively permeable membranes. It allows few substances to pass through and few not. And as you are seeing in this structure, it is made up of a bilipid, a lipid bilayer, as well as it has some protein. So, if we talk about the transportation is of two types. One is the active transport and the another is the passive transport. What is a passive transport? In passive transport, the molecules move from higher concentration to lower concentration. It moves, and this passive transport does not require any energy. It's comparatively slow and it's non-selective. But talking about active transport, it is a transport where the transportation of material takes place from low concentration to higher concentration. It is highly selective. It requires carrier proteins. It requires energy. And comparatively, it is a rapid process as compared to the passive transport. But talking about the passive transport, it can be of three types: osmosis, simple diffusion, or facilitated diffusion. Children, what is passive transport? As I told you just now, passive transport is transport of material from higher concentration to lower concentration. From high means it requires a concentration gradient for its movement. And it does not require any energy. So simple diffusion is what? The neutral molecule, the neutral solute, they cross the membrane. You can see over here the small circles are shown. It's showing that it is passing through. That is a simple diffusion. Osmosis is what? Movement of water from higher concentration of water to lower concentration of water across the membrane. That is osmosis. So that also takes place through passive transport. And talking about the last, that is facilitated transport or facilitated diffusion. That's a passive transport. Facilitated diffusion is not an active transport. It is a passive transport. So it also moves from higher concentration to lower concentration. But it is the polar molecules. Polar molecules cannot pass through the lipid bilayer because lipid bilayer is a non-polar part. So the polar molecules cannot pass through the lipid bilayer. So it requires a carrier protein to transport from higher concentration to lower concentration. So that is known as facilitated transport. Now next we come up to cell wall. Cell wall is only present in plant cell. Animal cells do not have cell wall. That's wall. What is a cell wall? It's a non-living structure, and it's present in not only in plant cells but also in fungi cells, in algae cells. Algae have cell wall made up of cellulose, galactans, and minerals like calcium carbonate. Whereas other plants, the normal plants, they have cell wall made up of cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin, and protein. Talking about fungi, in fungi the cell wall is made up of chitin. So you can see that algae, plants, and fungi, they have cell wall, but the material of which it is made up of is different. Primary cell wall. Just now I said that cell wall is rigid. Okay. But primary cell wall, that is the cell wall of young plants, is not that rigid. It is capable of growth. It is the secondary cell wall which is present in the older plant, which is rigid and does not allow growth. Children, when cell division takes place, after cell division, the very first thing, that is after karyokinesis, that is after the division of the nucleus, cytokinesis takes place. And in plant cell, the first layer formed is middle lamina that is made up of calcium pectin. On both the sides of the middle lamina form the primary cell wall. So this primary wall, which is present in the young plant, is as I told you just now, capable of growth. So the cells can also increase in size. Later on both the sides of the primary wall, there is a secondary wall, which is rigid. Now, if the cell wall is that rigid, it is impermeable to the substance, then how do the substance move from one cell to another? There is a connection known as plasmodesmata, a bridge known as plasmodesmata, which connects the cytoplasm of the neighboring cell and through which the cytoplasm are in contact with each other. What are the functions of cell wall? It helps in preventing the cell from bursting or collapsing. It allows the material to pass in and out of the cell. It protects the cell from the attack of pathogens like virus, bacteria, fungi, protozoa. And it also provides mechanical support for the cell against the graft. So children, in this video, I have explained you about cell membrane and cell wall. And in the next video, I'll be explaining you about the different organelles.